Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here with Ted Rowlands of Court TV and Victim to Verdict host. Ted, I when I pitched this story to the bosses, the reaction was Jeffrey Epstein is dead. But to me, this is a story that just does not stop. Do you agree with me? And I have some questions that I want to ask you regarding how someone like Prince Andrew elevates a case like Jeffrey Epstein's. But do you think that this story is over and done with, or is there more to come when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, a lot of people want it to be over, and I think that you're right. It's not over, especially as we move into the next administration here in the U.S., the Trump administration. There's a chance, there have been promises, but there's a chance that this gets opened up to the public.
Yeah.
The only way that happens is if someone who doesn't care is in charge, and it's setting up to possibly be that exact scenario. Now, what's there? It's going to be names, logs, the flight logs. It's the people that were associated with him, and this is the one. Pick a person on the planet. I think he's number one that you do not want to be associated with if you are rich or famous or
Yeah.
both.
That's a good point. So it's Kash Patel who is making these kind of promises or are insinuating that these are some of the things he would do if he is approved by the Senate, correct? To be the new FBI. Is it director? Is that the right
Yes,
title? Okay.
director of the FBI, if he's confirmed, and that's still a huge if.
Right, right. I've heard I've heard that there is some issue back and forth with that, but in the build up to Trump being elected again, he did media where he said he felt like the Trump administration would release the Diddy list and would release the Jeffrey Epstein list. And the Epstein list I heard a lot throughout the Trump campaign. JD Vance even mentioned it on Theo Vaughn's podcast when he said, yeah, they got to release the Epstein list. And I wanted, let's start with this. Diddy, we're covering Diddy at the same time. A lot of people have asked me to make comparisons to Diddy, but in that instance, that was the superstar. Diddy is the superstar. Jeffrey Epstein was just some guy. And it's almost like the people he surrounded himself with are more, that is what makes this the biggest scandal ever, because he's not the superstar. It's this regular guy that has somehow attracted all of these power players to him. And they are
Which
the,
he had a unique ability to do, apparently. Like he
yeah,
was, I do say that Diddy and Epstein, if the allegations are true about Diddy, were similar in that the MO was to attract, then blackmail, attract, and then have something on them, have the Diddy tapes, have the Epstein, um, the incidents, right? They both used a strange way of almost like a Black Widow spider, to get you into their web, and then you're
there's also
in trouble.
according to I haven't seen them go into this very deeply, but there was allegedly a Ghislaine Maxwell associated with Diddy too. Like he had his own Ghislaine, and I guess we'll see how, if she's prosecuted, we'll have to see if everything transpires in a similar way. But apparently he had a recruiter as well. When it comes to Prince Andrew, I'm going to report this much differently than you do, because I cover royals heavily. But from a crime reporter's standpoint, from an investigative journalist standpoint, no royal care in the world. How does having a name like Prince Andrew, how does that change a story like Jeffrey Epstein's? I mean, does this go from like second page of the newspaper to top billing when you have a prince attached to something so salacious?
Well, it shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Legally, it doesn't matter, but it attracts the public's attention. And when the public wants or is listening, then prosecutors, no matter what their level, react. And it's human nature. any high profile case gets more attention and it is prosecuted more vigorously. So that's what it brings to the table. But, he is nothing player in the grand Epstein case, right? Epstein was having sex with minors, recruiting them with the help of Ghislaine and for money, and was able to satisfy this disgusting, insatiable, just sex addiction that we see with Diddy as well, if the allegations are anywhere close to true. And that's what is the bulk of the case. The Epstein hanger-on who shows up at the island for a little bit of the whatever, that's sort of secondary, but boy, it changes everything when it's a big name. And then you add a ton of other big names, and it changes it even more so.
So when they say, I feel like the Diddy list is very different to the Epstein list. When they say, because to me, the definition of, and correct me if you feel like I'm wrong, when I hear Diddy list, it's my understanding that they pulled, a digital footprint, also, DVDs, VHS tapes. What are those little
Drives.
hard drives? Yeah. So it's my understanding that they've gone through all of these videos, these blackmail videos that you alluded to, and there are some pretty famous names potentially on this. That's also coming from the Busby attorney that's filing all of these civil cases,
Mm-hmm.
saying that there are some pretty big names associated with some of these incidents allegedly related to the Diddy case. When we hear the term the Diddy list, are we imagining that those are some of the celebrities that might be featured in these videos? Are we imagining that it's just people that looked and turned the other way and knew what was going on?
I think that turning the other way is very difficult to prosecute
Oh, okay.
unless you're actively participating in the event, whether in a role like Ghislaine Maxwell or actually in the disgusting lube pit that was sort of visualized, where they were bringing these underage people in and having and participating in sexual acts. That's different than, hey, I went to a Diddy party and I think there was some weird stuff going on over there, and I don't know how old that kid was. That's hard to prosecute because you're really not part of the overall conspiracy unless you have some sort of. But on the embarrassment factor and the public opinion factor, it is an absolute career killer. If your job is to be an entertainer or someone who is basically held up as a person who's very good at your artistic craft, well, all that goes away in an instant if you knew that this was going on and you were there.
Yeah, I mean that's wild because when I listen to you say that, I think hard to prosecute, real easy to scare with a civil suit because you don't want your
Yes.
name in the newspaper. So you're going to go ahead and write that check, keep your head down and hope that nobody else hears about this.
And hope that this trial somehow does. The beauty of the Epstein thing for those people that were part of it was Epstein was dead, which,
Yeah.
of course, that's where you get all the conspiracy theorists and others that think that he was intentionally killed. It, as long as Diddy goes to trial, people are going to have a difficult time sleeping. The civil stuff, that's to your point, that's a threat. They will threaten everybody and everybody will pay and everybody walks away, signs their NDAs, and everyone's life moves on.
Yeah.
The criminal aspect is different because you're going to, unless the attorneys of influence of these other stars are able to get a position in the trial where they are acknowledged by the judge and can argue, and they're successful, that they're redacted out of the documents and or videos, then they have a chance. But otherwise they're going to come in, their names will come in, and the state can call them, or in this case the federal government can call them as witnesses. It'll be fascinating to see how Diddy plays out, because I don't think he's going to end up dead anywhere anytime soon. He's in a much different position than Epstein. Because first of all, The last thing Diddy's going to do is take his own life. He is
Exactly. Yeah, he's fighting. He's fighting. He really truly
absolutely
fight him so much. This is not supposed to be about Diddy, but I will ask you this. I recently saw a headline. It's in the. I wish I could remember his name. I'm on court TV with him all the time, so I'm a horrible person. But someone was quoted as saying that Cassie tried to settle this with Diddy. He refused, and had he settled initially, the dominoes would not have fallen. What's your reaction to that? I mean, doesn't don't you sit back and go, gee, God, you should have just cut the check. You should, no matter what the number was. I mean,
right.
I
Yeah.
that's
And you
horrible that
wonder,
it's horrible that I say that, because obviously if he did bad things, he should get in trouble. But it's just, you just think it's wild to look at somebody's defiance and ego and entitlement. He thought he had more money, that he thought he had so much money he could get away with this. But he had so much money he could have gotten away with it had he just said, "You're right, Cassie. Here's the check."
right. He what he thought was he had more power than he had. And that is what would have done him in because you're right. You eliminate her, and this probably doesn't happen because you would argue that the motivation for that video of her at the hotel getting beaten by Diddy was from her camp. Someone in that camp released that. So you're right, but that's the beauty of it all. These people, they get to a certain level and they don't see the world clearly at all.
Well,
Um,
that takes us back to Prince Andrew, because like
yeah,
the fact that he refused to, during that Newsnight interview, refuses to acknowledge like that his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was troublesome. Says that like, well, he introduced me to a lot of really great people, so I don't want to completely disown him. I had to fly to New York to personally break up with him as my friend. I mean, that that right there, your statement about them becoming so disillusioned and feeling like they're too powerful, that reminds me a lot of Prince Andrew. So I
and
guess
Andrew was stuck. I mean, let's face it, he was in trouble and he's feeling the effects of it. He's not in a jail cell. He's not, it could be a lot worse for him.
it's the most glamorous jail cell ever, called Royal Lodge, and he's fighting like hell to stay in that one because he doesn't want Frogmore Cottage. So I guess my where I was leading you here is, what's the difference between the Epstein list? Do we believe that's just flight logs? And if so, we can't, like, you can't prosecute somebody on flight logs, because just because somebody hopped on the Lolita Express, that's not technically proof that anything went down, correct?
Oh, correct. And the only reason you would allow these to become public is out of spite or
Oh, okay.
because you think that you're going to expose these elites that in this case probably are leaning left folks. You've got the potentially Dershowitz Clintons, that they want to embarrass is what they want to do. And so the motivation is not behind it. Maybe it happens, maybe it does. I don't, you know, there's zero chance of a prosecution of anyone who is on the airplane. That proves absolutely nothing. You have to have a lot more than that, and I think that they would have already moved forward with prosecutions. One would hope if there was more to it, but there's just no way to think. Oh, I bet they're going to arrest blank, blank, and blank if their name is on that manifest.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at these quotes from Cash, and it says these documents, particularly those linked to Epstein and Diddy, could shed light on matters the American people deserve to understand. It's time to clear the air and reveal who's been involved in covering up the truth. I think, yeah. Uh, and he's saying that people are terrified that these could be. So it clearly does sound, if there is any sort of cover up, obviously we do want to know, but a flight log does not give I mean, even Clinton said in his recent book, meeting Jeffrey Epstein was one of the worst things that ever happened to me. He let me borrow his plane to go to charity events. I don't know whether or not that's the truth or not, but you are seeing people try to jump in front of anything that might come out in the future associated with that. Does the list even matter anymore? Are we only talking about it because of this vague threat. Do you think that this list has any historical value? Do you think it has any value? I mean, would it be meaningful towards the victims? Maybe that's a heavier question than I meant to ask, but does this list matter anymore?
Well, I think it would matter the same way that, as citizens that are on the outside, you kind of wonder what is really going on with a lot of different things, whether it's UFOs or the Epstein list. I mean, that the truth afforded to you just because you're a lowly person. And there's a little resentment there. You're like, hey, just tell us. And so I think it'll have a little impact. Like people will be interested. It'll come back and it will have some ramifications, um, but not the same way it would have had it come out years ago when we found out about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. That's when nerves were raw and careers could have been killed instantly.
And I mean, I meant, well, I guess I can crush this into this question because I meant to mention the fact that typically in the royal watching community over the last 4 years, we've just been terrified of what Harry and Meghan are going to release. But this year, it had nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. It was back to back Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew pieces, one for Netflix and one for Amazon Prime. Amazon's was a royal scandal, and then Netflix's was Scoop. I enjoyed both of those pieces, but how bizarre that they came out so quickly. They came out so quickly in a 1 year span. Uh, this list really the only prosecution's not an option. So really the only thing is public humiliation. To the My point being, we just had an entire year of entertainment shows, some of the biggest stars in the world, starring in movies and TV series about the scandal. I don't know if it can get any more embarrassing for Prince Andrew. I feel like it's peak. I mean, anything that
Oh yeah,
happens now is just noise, right?
yeah, for Prince Andrew for sure. I mean, we all know. You watch the interview, you absorb all the information. We get it, right? We
Yeah.
we all get what happened, and he gets it, and the Royals get it, and he is, who he is now. So you're going to hear a couple sort of details. It's what is expected. What could be on the list is a name we haven't heard yet, right? It's the enough have enough of the names have been leaked where any confirmation of that is going to have a little bit of an effect. The Diddy list, that's a different story because we just don't know anybody
Yeah.
really. That'll have an
Absolutely.
initial splash.
Absolutely. And then I did talk to this will be my last question. Thank you so much for your time. I did talk to Barry Levin about a book he wrote on Prince Andrew. And he suggested that we might not ever see Prince Andrew step on American soil again because he refused to talk to investigators about Jeffrey Epstein, despite like his people telling the media, no, he's cooperating. The people told Barry Levin that no, there was literally no cooperation. He refused to cooperate with us. So Barry suggested that Andrew would never step foot on American soil again because investigators might swoop in, take him in, and force him to sit down and talk to them. Do you think that's a realistic option? Is the story still so electric or still so alive that or is Ghislaine all they need? Ghislaine is in jail. We're done. We're closing the door on this.
Yeah, I would be shocked if, you can't just swoop someone in to question them. You have to swoop in and detain them. And detaining a royal, unless you have more than we know about and some some real particular details. Um, there's very low chances of a successful prosecution, so you're not going to go down that road with someone like that. Now, that said, fine, Prince Andrew. There's no need to come to the U.S. at least for a while.
Yeah, you're saying
A,
just
a
keep
search
your distance. Well,
yeah.
if you were Prince Andrew and you needed a buck, you might come over here and do a couple of speaking engagements. But I don't know if people want anything to do with him right now. But remember, him and Fergie used to come out here and get paid thousands of dollars for just being adorable.
Right, and he's no longer adorable. And that's
That's well, Mike. Yes, I can confirm. And I just think there's so much political sensitivity around law enforcement, law enforcement, American law enforcement intimidating a member of the British royal family.
and the weaponization of law enforcement that now seems to be somewhat real in the U.S. And even if you're not, maybe it is the possibility of it would keep me far away from here if I had done anything remotely wrong, because you
Yeah.
just never know.
Ted, you're my favorite Ted.
Really good. For a while there, I was second.
Well, I've got a thing for couples. So yeah, you're climbing the list. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I still do enjoy talking about this story because I don't feel like the book is closed on it. And I do think that there is still a lot to learn. But I agree with you that Prince Andrew's chapter is closed. There's nothing else to learn there. I feel like we've learned everything we're going to learn. And you're right. You get a sense for the truth and what you get a sense for everything that happened, despite the opposite coming out of his mouth during that interview. You kind of got an idea of, all right, you needed this guy. This guy made things fun for you. You should not have been in his sphere. You're too proud to admit that you made a mistake, and you're now dealing with the consequences. But yeah, I kind of feel like the Prince Andrew stuff is done, but I do feel like we will still learn more about Jeffrey Epstein over the next few years.
And there'll be more, yeah. And let's face it, the Prince Andrew, it's so easy to evaluate because it's right and wrong. And, he is wrong, right? He was in this position, and we all know he was in this position, and any, explanation by him about this just doesn't ring true to people. And it's not, there's nothing legal about it, just the public perception. And that's a killer for him. And that has put him in the place that he is now, basically hidden away, where
Yeah.
he's paying a price for decisions made.
And I will just say, he says he is innocent of all of the allegations that could be potentially illegal. He does say he's innocent of those, but I think what we're discussing is guilt by association, and it
Yeah,
doesn't look great.
right.
Yeah.
It's the public's um, the public's determination, given the information that we have, because a lot of it's concealed, about should we did you do something right or wrong? Or let's face it, if we thought that Prince Andrew was wrongly accused of this, and it was universal, guess what? He would be a hero, and he could
Right.
come here anytime he wanted to speak, and we'd listen, and we'd be like, "Man, can't believe what you went through, poor guy." We're not there yet, and I don't think we'll ever be there, but you never know.
That's right. Well, happy holidays to you, Ted. I hope I get to talk to you again soon, but I know you're probably going to be ringing in all of the holiday eggnog.
You never know.
All right. If you agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks so much for watching.